It is Monday, July 19th, 2021, and this is the iPhoneography podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 39 of the show. My name is Greg McMillan, and I'm here with my good friend Dave Podner. Hello, Dave.
Hey, Greg. How's it going today?
It's going really well. It was actually hot as blazes today, so everybody that thinks Canada is a cold country, no, I get news for you.
Oh,
yeah, it was a warm one.
We were warm, but we weren't unseasonably warm.
Yeah,
it's July, at least around here. You're expecting, for those of us using the old-fashioned temperature system, mid upper 80s. Is not completely, our average high is lowered to mid 80s, 82, 83, something like that. But if you hit 85 to 87, it's like, it's summer, it gets warm now and then, it'll be cool. So it's reasonable. It isn't like some places where it's like, like Seattle or the Pacific Northwest of both the US and Canada a few weeks ago that was hitting, steel melting temperatures almost.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was pretty hot out there for a bit.
Yeah.
So this week we are going to continue our discussion on the different iPhone cameras with the Ultrawide, and we're going to kind of go quickly through that one because there's really we've been kind of comparing the different cameras as we go, and we've mentioned the Ultrawide a fair bit in the last couple of episodes. So the Ultrawide, it came out with the iPhone 11, and it's been on the 11, all the 11 series and the 12s, and it's kind of cool, but with the smaller aperture that it has, which is 2.4, I find the quality on that is just a little less than stellar for really good images, and for darker photos it doesn't really work as good. So now, Dave, you don't have the ultra wide.
Not on my phone, no. Now on Ruth's iPad she does.
I was just going to say, I think her iPad has it now. Does she use it at all?
No, honestly, no. And the couple times that I've taken a photo with it, the quality of the ultra wide is significantly, I don't want to say significant, but it's worse than the normal.
Yeah.
The corners, you can see the aberrations there. You can see, not only is the quality worse, the bendings there. So it makes it a little bit worse to see that way. I haven't tried it much in low light, but it is an iPad, so there's not really much of a, it's something you're going to use as an emergency, or, if you have nothing else nearby, it's acceptable, but it's not great.
Yeah.
And
now, does the iPad have lens correction in the settings like the iPhone does?
No, it does not. No.
Okay.
No, so if I need to correct it, I would have to use an app that would correct it, or do a lot of manual work to deal with the lens aberration there.
Right. Yeah.
Which again, it's almost like they took the ultra-wide lenses that didn't meet the iPhone specifications and just threw them in the iPad.
Oh yeah, yeah.
In terms of the quality difference.
Yeah, because I know Mark Sadowski has really complained about the camera system in his iPad Pro. Now he has his iPad Pro. Is it the same as Ruth's, or is it older? Like a year older, isn't it?
She got hers around 18 months ago, beginning of 2020. So I think his maybe. No, I think
he got his before that.
Yeah, but not much. I think they're close because, like you said, it came to the iPhone first. And the 11 came out in the fall of 2019.
Right.
So I think that he got his only like a month or two before her. But it was like I said, it's acceptable, but she doesn't really use she has her phone for photography. The big advantage of the iPad, of course, is that giant screen, so you can see about setting up a photo, but it just doesn't. Maybe the newer ones are better. I didn't see that they were the 2021s. So the only time I really wished, now there are times I wished my phone had it for a shot where it, you're like, oh, I'm too close and I can't back up anymore. Or there's this wide expanse I want to get a photo of. And, so it's just a matter of wider would be better there. So it's a compensation I've had to use, like in Camera Plus 2, you can do a ultra wide 16:9. So I've had to use that when I wanted a wider shot versus the ultra wide lens. I'd rather have the ultra wide lens because then I could say, well, I'm going to crop a little from the top and a little from the side, and I can get a really nice, in the middle, decent shot going on there.
Yeah. So on the last show, I put up pictures of my car to show, the differences between the three cameras. So I was out today and I got 3 more pictures that I could bring up.
Okay.
All right. So you can see those. Okay. So
there we go. Yes.
Yeah. The one on the left was taken with the telephoto, and I never moved my body or the camera. Now, what I did do in all 3, well, I guess I moved the camera a little bit, but what I did do is where this tree is. So there's, for those listening, it's a scene at the waterfront in a nearby town, and the shoreline is all these rocks, and I'm standing right at the rocks, and I was looking out over the bay, and there's a tree in front of me. And what I did was I positioned the tree so that the tree crossed over with the horizon line of the bay, and it's at the upper left third. So if you're using the rule of thirds, it's a third of the way down from the top and a third of the way in from the left. And that's where the tree and the horizon line intersect. And then with the telephoto, I took the shot. And then with in the center of the screen here, it's the same thing. Now, there, okay, there we go. The same thing, I use the horizon line and the tree to intersect at the top left third. And as you can see, obviously with the wide camera or the normal 1x camera, you get more of the scene, you get more of the tree, you can see where the shoreline goes out, stops, and then comes back. And there's park benches here. It's a park in this local town, and you can see more of the water, and you can see how the water comes in towards me where I was standing. Excuse me. And then on the right hand side of the screen, you can see underneath behind Dave and I, with the ultra wide, I got even more of the scene. I got more of the rocks. You can actually see the ground where I was standing. And the same thing, the tree intersects with the horizon line on the top left third, and you can see more of the water. But what's really noticeable here is going from the telephoto to the ultra wide, everything looks further away. And we talked about that before. When I had pictures of my car up, there was a tree behind the car, and you pointed it out, Dave, that the tree got further away the wider the shot. So these are, of course, these are all unedited pictures, but just for illustration. But I'll put these on the website with the post for this podcast, where you can see them. I did that with the last one. We talked about a bunch of different pictures, and they're all on the website at iPhoneography.ca, and you can see what exactly we're talking about here. So, the ultra wide is good for landscapes and stuff like that. I mean, you could play around with it and point it at your dog if your dog's looking at you, and your dog's nose will just jump right out at the screen. Things like that. There's lots of use cases for it, but for me personally, I like it for a landscape when I want to really emphasize a foreground. Um, so if you had an ultra wide camera, Dave, what kind of use case would you have for it? Like, would you play around with it with landscapes, or you got something fun to try with it?
I could definitely see landscapes. Um, I would say it also would seems like it would work if you're in a confined space and you're trying to get a feel for like an open, like a room where you're
Yeah,
trying to not only get the shot of maybe the person in front of you or what you're seeing, but you're trying to get the whole feel for it. You'll actually have that additional space available for you. Now, the
yeah,
one
that's
thing, and I think we talked about this, I think last time, how just like with the 10 and the 10s, where you had the telephoto and the wide lens, and that you can use them for portrait mode. You can use the ultra wide and the wide, if I'm right, also in
yeah.
portrait mode. So you
Hmm.
don't have to have the issue like if I want to do portrait mode and I want to do it of a flower or something from the garden, I have to back up a good amount to get the portrait mode to work.
Yes, yeah.
And where you won't have to do that with using the wide and pet peeve of mine, if you have 3 lenses, you literally could make far, near, and medium, or normal lens and telephoto and wide lens. But like for the iPhone 11 to have a wide and an ultra wide, I don't like calling that a wide lens, because wide means it is generally wider than something. But if you're having wide and ultra wide, you don't have anything to judge it against that's narrow. Even I know
Yeah,
that's not the right term, but you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah. Well, I guess that's because it's the equivalent of a wide angle, when it comes
yeah.
to traditional cameras, right? So, um, if it's if it's on a 3 camera phone, then it is wide, right? It is wider than the telephoto, but
Right.
I guess Apple's got to give them a name, right? So,
Oh yeah. I mean, it's
and
a random name.
yeah, and a lot of people will say 1x, a lot of people will say 2x or
Mm-hmm.
2.5x, and for the ultra wide it's 0.5x. But I like to I like to call them what Apple calls them, which is the wide and the
Right.
ultra wide and whatnot. So um, uh, one thing that people can do if they don't have an ultra wide is they can put on uh, an attachment lens, like the moment wide lens can go
Mm-hmm.
on the wide angle camera and then
Oh,
give
okay.
you an ultra wide experience. So, which is not bad. In my experience, I've found
Mm-hmm.
that it gives you the view, and then actually on my 10s or 10s Max, it worked better than it did on my 12 Pro Max,
Oh wow.
because on the 12 Pro Max, it it gave the view, but it kind of softened the image a bit. Like it wasn't as tack sharp. Um, the
Mm-hmm.
advantage of that is you get the advantage of the wider aperture on the wide camera. And I always think to myself, this all sounds so convoluted, but uh, you get it lets more light in. The wide camera lets more light in. So with the wide angle lens on, whether it's Moment or Sandmark or any of these companies that have these wide lenses,
Mm-hmm.
it gives you that ultra wide experience with pretty decent image quality. But I just
Yeah.
found that it softened especially around the edges, around the outside edges of the image, it softened it up a little
Mm-hmm.
bit. Wasn't as tack
Yeah.
sharp. So, when I did that, I ended up selling my Moment wide and my Moment telly, because
Mm.
I can deal with a little um, degradation in the image quality of the ultra wide with the smaller aperture. more so than I can the not so crisp and clear, sharp image.
Okay.
So that's my experience with the moment wide and using it on a phone to try to get the ultra wide experience.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, anytime you add a lens on top, you're definitely adding a giant possibility that it won't be as crisp, and your shading may be off just because you're adding outside of the system. You're just tacking it on. So yeah.
You're going through glass, and then you're going through more glass and all that stuff. So yeah. So anything else you can add about the ultra wide? Because like I say, we've covered it sort of through these other videos and these other shows, and
I remember, and I forget, unfortunately, who said this. I want to say it was either Matt Hoffman or it was Mark, about using the ultra wide with the panoramic.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because you're getting, I mean, already in a panoramic, you're tossing away the top quarter, maybe a fifth of the screen, the bottom fifth, and the sides. You're taking them away, and you're just taking whatever's in the middle and straightening that out. Well, doing that ultra wide, you'll be able to get a really nice panoramic also.
Yeah, that's true. I keep forgetting about that ability with the iPhone with the panoramics. I shoot a few of them now and again, and I do the odd time go from one camera to the other to do that, but and I just keep forgetting to mention it. One thing that I can think of that's worth mentioning is if you're doing a group photo of a bunch of people. I got some aunts and uncles upset with me one time because I used a very wide shot of a whole pile of people in my family, and in the center they look pretty good, but the wider it goes, the wider the people are.
More distortion because of the lens.
Yeah, because of the distortion. And so if you're gonna do portraits or family portraits of people, then be mindful of that. I find it's a lot easier to kind of get everybody to stand in a semicircle. I don't know, either that or just use the panoramic feature of the phone to swoop across, and you can get everybody looking fairly similar that way. But yeah, if you're going to do a group shot of people, using the ultra wide sometimes isn't the best case. But if you have to, then be mindful of that.
Right. So just like when you were showing your Venza pictures last time, where the ultra wide did give a fish lens to it.
Yes.
So imagine if you're not talking about an inanimate object like a car, but you're talking about different people set up there. Yeah, it could not be the most flattering photo in the world.
Yeah. And it's good for, like I say, with the dog or even, pictures of kids or people or whatever. You can get right close to them, and, it'll just make whatever, like with the picture of the Venza, the corner of the car that was closest to you really zoomed in. And so that's going to happen with people too. It's going to really, you can zoom in and their nose is going to look huge. And then as it goes back, their head, the head gets smaller, and it's just a lot of distortion. So I think that's why landscapes are probably the best use for that particular camera.
Yeah, total agreement there.
Yep. Yeah. So I think that's going to put a wrap on the ultra wide. What else we were going to talk about this week was, okay, so I saw a tweet on Twitter because that's where tweets are, and it was from Elaine Taylor over in the UK, and she, and this people do this on Twitter, and it's really cool. It's a really cool thing. They'll put on Twitter, some of the people that they look up to in photography and things like that, and I'm talking about the mobile space here. So they'll put on mobile photographers that they like and all this stuff. And I got to start doing this, but they'll put, just a shout out, right? Just a shout out, or a follow Friday thing or whatever. And, the response from that was pretty cool. And what it reminded me of was that the community aspect in mobile photography is something, it's just really special, because everybody, no matter what camera you're using, and when I say camera, I mean phone, like whether it's an Android or like a Samsung or an iPhone, doesn't matter. Everybody gets, everybody's pleasant with everybody about it. I don't see any feuds or arguments or anything going on these places. And let me get my notes up here, because I have a few places where I'm present, Dave's present in some of them. And I thought we just kind of just touch on some of these places and kind of go over the experience that we have with them. So, I mean, the first one I think is really huge for you and I, Dave, and that's the Tiny Shutter Facebook group.
Right.
That's where basically it all began for me, as far as like being in a community and stuff. And Mark Sadowski runs it, and it's still fairly active, even though the Tiny Shutter podcast isn't something that you find regularly anymore. It's not gone yet, but it's out there. And I mean, there's a lot. I still haven't listened to episode 1 yet. I want to go back and hear that and see what that was like, because I think it's going to be funny. But
yeah, and
have you heard
it
it?
is available. I've listened to it earlier this year, I think, when the anniversary was coming up.
Okay. Yeah, I got to do that. Yeah.
But yeah, because I believe it's coming up to year 10 since it was started.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to listen to see what it sounded like back then and compare. And I'll say this for Mark and Matt, their voices really haven't changed at all in that long time.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is
Yeah.
kind of
Well, the
crazy.
anniversary of Tiny Shutter would be March 6th.
Okay.
So in next March in 2022, that will be 10 years since that podcast started. And because it's not completely gone yet, that's a long time for a podcast to be going. And like I say, it doesn't, Mark and Matt and Joe, they all have, kids and stuff. And like, I think it was when I was talking to somebody recently, and I said, you and I do this show and we carry the torch, because we don't have a life. But
we're two old married guys. We have nothing going on.
Oh yeah. We got dogs, and you got dogs and cats, and but no, I mean, we do it because we love it, and those guys, their kids are getting to the point where they're tying up their time and whatnot, and that's awesome. But so there's the Tiny Shutter community on Facebook,
which we know people hate Facebook. I'm not just talking about you, Greg.
Yeah, no, you know what? I have a love-hate relationship with Facebook. I hate it. I don't like their business model, blah blah blah, all that stuff. But I do love the way that people can communicate with each other and keep tabs on each other, and unfortunately, it's the biggest platform for doing that. And if you're not on it, you're nowhere. And I found that out a couple of times in my past. So, Tiny Shutter Facebook group, if you're listening and you haven't checked it out, go check it out. Flickr is a pretty good community. I'm on there, but I'm not as active on there. I'm barely active on there, to be honest with you. And I think it's mainly because it doesn't have a great mobile experience, for uploading and things like that.
The last time I was on it, it's been over a year, and I tried to get more involved, uploading to Flickr in addition to Instagram, just because you have less trolley material. It's more about the photos, and and not only was there I may not have been kept following enough people, but it just didn't have the volume of photos on there. Even though they were really good photos, they're still not the volume. And Flickr's been passed around so many times in terms of being bought out, moved over. And I think Flickr's to the point of, if you're younger than a certain age, it's new to you because you weren't around when it was there before Instagram. And you don't have the fond memories for Flickr. Or if you're older than a certain age, you came into the internet, and the internet may be Facebook for you. Just so you can interact with there are people who use it just like you say, communicating with family. And as long as the family's all connected up on Facebook, they don't go to a web browser. They don't go somewhere else. They just go to Facebook, which that's a bit issue in itself. But it's and like I said, Flickr and their mobile app are just so horrible. And I just stopped using it, to be honest, because it was that bad. And like I said, they were independent, then they got bought out by AOL, then they got I sold off,
then Verizon, and now SmugMug owns them.
Right. So maybe SmugMug will have a better, but the thing is, unless you get to the volume of something like an Instagram or a Facebook, you need to make money off of your users and not just sell your users data to be sustainable. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, they're large enough they can just survive off their names. And they don't, and that people are going to join, versus something like a Flickr where you almost have to talk someone into joining Flickr and explain what it is.
And I find Flickr is a much better much better community for traditional photographers, even though the most popular camera for uploads on Flickr, and it's been this way for years, is the iPhone. Now, maybe I just haven't put the time into it to find mobile users on the platform. But I mean, when I got into Flickr, I was using back in my Canon days, and I was using DSLR, and I started following a lot of people with DSLRs and whatnot. And in my case, when it came to broadening my horizons for finding people on social that were involved in mobile photography, well, that's when Instagram was just exploding. And that was the place to be. So I joined Instagram back then, and that's just where it's been at. So it's hard to it's so hard to gain that big of a presence on so many different places. Usually people will find one place that's their go-to place when it comes to social media. When it comes to a specific thing, like say mobile photography. So but we're going to get more on Instagram later. So Flickr, tiny shutter, Flickr. Now Andy Butler is a great guy who started Mobiography. I'm going to fumble this. Mobiography.net. And it's got its own community, I guess you could say, because with his magazine that he puts out, Mobiography Magazine, it's all about mobile. It's Android as well as iPhone. And, it's an absolutely superb publication. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. It's really cool. I think there's a free issue to download if you haven't subscribed. But I've subscribed for a couple of years now.
Like I said, I did check it out today, and there is a free issue. It's not the newest, but still gives you a good idea what the magazine's about. And if it's because I did it on my iPhone, and it needs something bigger than the phone.
It's better on an iPad.
You need, or now I can imagine the 12 Max size, because at that point you're getting close to iPad mini.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
may look a little bit better than on my phone, but yeah, on my phone I was reading it and it was like, yeah, this is really a bit on the small side, and it was kind of uncomfortable to read.
Now there's a setting on there, Dave, where you can actually, it's kind of like, in Safari on the iPhone, you can go to the reader view.
Okay, yeah.
There's a setting in the Mobiography magazine now. There's the Mobiography app, I think, and then it's also on. What is the app? It's like a magazine. Excuse me, a digital magazine app. I have to find it. This is the worst thing about having so many apps on your phone. It's ridiculous.
Well, remember, all you have to do is kind of go from a home screen, go around a quarter way down, just pull down from there, and you can bring up your search.
Yeah, if I could remember the name of the app, though, that would
yeah,
work.
That's the only issue. That is the only issue. Yes.
Anyway, there's a mobile magazine app. I'll find it and I'll put it in the show notes for that app too, because anyway, there's like you can see the whole page, and that's probably what you were looking at, right? Almost like reading a PDF. But there's another view where you can, it's like the reader view in Safari on the iPhone, where you can actually scroll through the story, and everything looks a lot bigger and fills the screen nicely. So, but the Mobiography community, I guess you could say, it's not like he has a place for social gathering, but the people that read the magazine, you can almost tell when he puts a post up. Well, he does have a Facebook group.
Okay.
Yes, he does.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, there is a Facebook group, and I'll have links to all these in the show notes too. So there is a Facebook group for Mobiography, and sometimes I forget these things because there's so many things that I'm looking at. But there's that community aspect there, and a lot of the people that are in the Mobiography Facebook group are in Tiny Shutter. A lot of these people are in a lot of these places too. So Mobiography, great place. It's really good for Android users as well. And never do I ever see an argument between iPhone and Android. Sometimes you might typically find. So it's just people are friendly. Another one is Mobitog. Now this is Mobitog dot something. Let me have a look, because it's online only. Mobitog.com, and it's iPhone and Android. It's all it is a massive forum site where you can there's challenges, there's different things going on, and again, a great group of people. Something I joined about a year ago and just haven't been able to stay as active in it as I want. Like going back to that thing where you find one thing that you spend a lot of time on, and I'm trying to participate in a lot of these things so that I can do just this, talk about them. But it's also the community aspect. The people are friendly. The people are great. I mean, I would love to meet all these people in person. I'd love to have everybody together for a massive convention, but I mean, they're from all over the world. So how do you ever manage that, right?
Exactly.
So Mobitog.com is another good one.
Yeah, well, did about the communities, and some of them being, a lot of it depends on if there are moderators and the tone that someone in the group would consider an elder in a group. If there tend to be a snarky person who puts down whatever they're not using instead of building up, and just has that kind of personality, the group will feed off of it. They'll attract more people with the same type of personality, and you can actually crowd out the if someone posts something and they're using Samsung instead of either normal Google or iPhone, it's if you have the type of community which kind of butts heads, you're going to butts heads. But a lot of it comes from the top down, that if you get a feeling for, oh, we're not that way around here, they're not that way, you get the better audience, you get the more engaged audience, you get the more positive audience.
Yeah. And I've people that do moderate these things really do a good job. If there's anything that's negative or anything like that, I mean, I don't really see it. So if there's things like that coming through, these people are doing a great job at getting them out of there, blocking them or removing them or whatever. So that's a big part of it is the moderation for sure. Another one is Shayne Mostyn's Bloody Legends Facebook group. I stumbled upon Shayne on YouTube when he was his forte is astrophotography with phones. He's got a website called phonephotoschool.au.com, I think, or .com.au. It's in Australia, so I think it's .com.au. But anyway, he's brilliant. He does at least 2 videos a week on YouTube, and he's just a super guy. Has the Facebook group going and great people in there again. I can't say enough about the community aspect of everything. It's just fantastic. And what's really cool about Shayne's group is a lot of them are in Australia, and you get to see and get a feel for what it's like in different parts of the world, different cultures, different countries. And when it comes to mobile photography, they're not much different anywhere really when you think about it. Gosh, it's just bloody cool. That's all I can say. And now someone else who I stumbled upon recently, and I'm going to have this guy on the show sometime, Mike James. He's another guy in Australia. Mike James, Smartphone Photography School. Now he has a Facebook page, not a group. He has a page where he'll post things that he puts on, and he has a YouTube channel, and that's where he does most of his stuff because it's all visual, and he so many different things on there you can learn from him and the people. So the community aspect for Mike James is mostly the people that make comments on the YouTube videos, which is not much different than a comment thread anywhere. So yeah, it's really cool. Now he's an ambassador for he's going to shoot me when he hears this because I'm trying to think of the name now. It's a company that in Australia that makes lenses, kind of like Moment, but these ones, they're really cool. You can actually manually focus the lens. So you can actually turn the focus ring on the lens, on these little lenses. And Struman optics, I'll put a link in the show notes. It is such a cool looking lens, and they make the macro, they make the telephoto, they make the wide, things like that. I tell you, give them a look. And I wouldn't say they're exactly cheap because they're a little pricey, but you get what you pay for. I think the quality that I've seen out of the pictures that I've seen is really, really good. So
I'm actually bringing his page up here. And he does have the.
You can screen share if you like.
Okay, yeah, let me bring that up here, and I will try at least. At least that's what I think I brought his page up here. So let me. Okay.
Yep, there it is.
Okay, yeah. So the home is just the actual training itself. with the different courses he has available. But when I went down to like the mini course here, which I without going on, and I can see his link to his podcast, but when I went up to product, and by the way, this is the third pop-up I've had just trying to look at the page. So it can be, I think that could be a little annoying. But yeah, once you get over here on products and you go to accessories, that's where you can find the lens information here.
Yeah.
Like I said, including this 14x zoom lens with tripod, because obviously if you're going to 14x in, it's going to be hard to actually get a good look for something.
Yeah. Myself, I don't know if I would want to even try the zoom, that 14x zoom lens, but when you look at the other ones, like the cinematic manual macro lens, that's what really caught my eye. The fact that you can focus that, it gives you so much more range of focusing than say just using a lens like the macro lens. It just expands on that ability. Now with Mike James, if you join his thing for free, you could actually get a lot of this stuff that he has on there. He gives you access to a lot of things courses, like for learning and that, for training that. There's some that are that you have to pay to get everything, but he gives you a ton of stuff for free. And when you sign up, you're going to get some emails, but I mean, this is his livelihood. And personally, I don't find it that bad. I mean, you're getting emails about this stuff, and if you want to look at, if you want to follow the links to look at this stuff, you go ahead and do that. But he's a great guy. I talked to him on Zoom a couple of days ago, and he's just a really fun guy, just like Shayne. He must be an Australian thing, but great guy, has a great thing going here. And it's not all iPhone. It's I think he probably talks about Android as well. I haven't really gotten into too much of it. I know that if you go to his podcast and listen to his podcast, it's probably better to hear the audio or to watch the video on YouTube, because there's so much stuff on there that's visual, right? He's showing you how to do stuff. He shows you how to do edits and all this stuff. But and actually on his website, there is a forum on there where I think he had the Facebook group, and he shut it down, and he moved the community aspect of it to his website, where you can interact and share photos and talk shop about different things when it comes to mobile photography. And another great guy, and I can't wait to get him on the show. We'll sort out a time where we can get him on. The biggest thing about having the guys from Australia on the show is that they're 14 hours ahead of us. So chances are the day we have them on, it's going to be one day for us, and it'll be tomorrow for them. But so I might have to record an interview with Mike ahead of time, and then fit it in, just because of the time difference. So like if we were to have him on when we do this, that would be like 11 o'clock in the morning for him. That's like halfway through his workday. So we'll have to figure something out, but we'll have him on, and he can talk a little bit more about what he's got going on. So yeah, Twitter is probably the most for this. It is what you make of it. When you join Twitter and start following people, you're going to follow people that are interested in the same things you are, or maybe celebrities or whatever. But if you want to get the most out of Twitter, Dave, you know this just as well as I do, you're gonna be in a community of people who are like you or like the same things as you do, like, with your wrestling and stuff that you're a fan of. You're probably following a lot of wrestling fans on there.
Right.
And it's that way with me with mobile photographers and a lot of photographers in general. So the worst thing about Twitter, though, is because it flows through so quickly, it's kind of hard to maintain a close-knit community space, for lack of better words, that you can just keep going back to. And I guess, maybe I don't know, maybe I don't know Twitter well enough, but I guess if you went back to your mentions and replies part of the app,
you can find it that
maybe that's, you're going to find everything there. But
right. Or if the bigger issue for Twitter is it's not really set up for photography. In fact, if you think about Twitter's beginning, where the reason why there was a 70 character limit was that was the SMS messaging.
Yeah.
So the idea behind Twitter was built off of text messaging and a common kind of a bulletin board for your different text messages you want to post. So now you're trying to shoehorn in video and audio and photography and long, you see some people actually make essays, which would be an excellent article in a magazine via tweets that they just kind of put together.
Yeah. And one thing that Twitter's done recently that I think is a great idea is when you post a photo now, it's in its original aspect ratio. They no longer crop them to the point where you have to actually tap on it or click on it to see the whole thing. You can see what the photo looks like in the stream. And I think that's fantastic. That was a good move by Twitter.
Most definitely, because some of the crops were really weird. But the thing is that the one thing that kind of it loses is that some of the crops made it where you would have a surprise when you clicked on it. And if you were really talented with knowing where the crop was going to be, your image from the crop where you could see it was, one image, but then it would, oh, surprise, here's, of course, and that could also be a bad thing, depending on where you're viewing or which computer you're viewing on, especially work computer, all of a sudden, you're like, oh, I don't want to put that on the work computer.
Yeah. And so that goes with with what you're viewing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. So that, Twitter is, it's a really good outlet. It's a really good way to find people to follow and things like that. And, that's how this whole idea of this part of the show came from is a post on Twitter that gave a shout out to other people. And, the camaraderie just flowed from there. So that was a good thing. Two more to finish this off. One is obviously the Artful iPhoneography community on MeWe. That's how this podcast started in the first place. It started off as an interview show of the members of the Artful iPhoneography community. Back when it started, it was called the Artful iPhotography community, and it was on the Mighty Networks. And Warren Opheim was going to shut it down. He asked me if I would be willing to take it over, and you know what? After thinking about it for a while, I thought, no, I can't let this die. He put too much work into growing a community of people and whatnot. So I took it on and, eventually moved it from the Mighty Networks to MeWe. MeWe is a website or an app, it's so much like Facebook. It's crazy, but it's privacy oriented, no ads, no tracking, all that stuff. So if that's what you're into, that's a great place to be.
Right.
We have,
and you're not going to get, you're not going to get it's almost like if Facebook groups could be pushed aside, which at one time Facebook groups was its own app,
right?
Which was absolutely wonderful. Is that if I only wanted to see what was in my groups and not my main feed, that's kind of what MeWe is. Is kind of like, okay, I don't have to see the general BS and people yelling and screaming and putting in weird things. I could just see what the individual groups, which most groups, even on Facebook, are pretty well, if someone comes in and starts spouting stuff in a photography group or a wrestling group that I'm in, or something else, the moderators will say, yeah, that doesn't belong here. We're getting you out of here.
Yeah.
We don't want you, we're not silencing you. We just don't want you in this room.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
So they had a separate app that was just Facebook groups that were all your groups, and it was wonderful. And then they killed it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they have to put everything under one roof. It seems like, but so for the MeWe group, for the Artful iPhoneography community on MeWe, it's artfulipc.club. That's the website that'll take you right to it. And there's 80 plus people in the group, and just like any group oriented community, there's always a few people that use it more than the rest. Some people, I don't know if it's because MeWe is just not that popular or what, but there's a lot of people that have joined and then crickets. But that's okay. It doesn't matter.
And
The
honestly, I
people
think
that
that's
are,
normal with any group. That's normal with any group, even outside of online. If you
oh
have
yeah,
just a group of people, and you're always going to have, it's the Pareto rule, the 80-20 rule. 20%
yeah,
of the people do 80% of either the work, or 20% of things cause 80% of problems, or it's pretty consistent. So having a few people that who are very active is pretty normal for what's going on.
yeah, that's right. Um, and as far as that group on MeWe goes, it's okay. I'm fine with it. I try to keep things going the best I can when time permits, and sometimes people will put a random post up, and we just go with it. It's not costing anything to have it, so there it
No
is.
harm, no foul there.
Yeah, that's right. So the final one that we're going to talk about, and I'm sure everybody's wondering why we haven't mentioned this one yet, is the single most largest community-oriented entity on the internet for photographers, and that's Instagram.
Yeah.
Now, Instagram is about to go through some changes that I've seen a lot of photographers not happy with. They want to change things to be a more content creator type of thing. Okay, so they want to be TikTok. They're not going to be TikTok, so they should just stick with their roots. People like Instagram. I hope you're listening. I know you're not, but um, as a photography enthusiast, I'm not a professional. It's just something that I love. I've made so many friends on Instagram worldwide, just like you have, Dave, and then anybody else that's on there, I'm sure, that it just pains me to think that they're going to try to make it so that if you want to maintain any kind of popularity or presence on Instagram, you've got to be a video content creator. And it's just, it drives me nuts to think of what could happen to Instagram if and it sounds more like when this is going to happen. What do you think
No,
of it?
they're definitely going to, and it's the idea of, and this is everybody, they want you on their app for a long time, and still photography can only keep you there so long. Looking at looking at photos, commenting on photos, and seeing another photo, as good and interesting as that is, that doesn't have the stickiness that advertisers want. And like every other network, if you're not paying for it, you're the product. So in Instagram, you're the product, and that's why they did stories. They saw Snapchat was extremely popular with stories. They added stories. I find stories sometimes are a little bit easier to keep up with people because of, you know, someone's doing something, but they don't necessarily want to make a post with 10 different photos. They'll put it in stories like, oh, here's an event that's happening. And maybe it's not, you know, the type of photo you want to keep up there or put a lot of effort into editing it. You throw it in stories. Well, now they're saying, well, that's kind of leveling off. And of course, they want to see growth. You know, when you get to a certain size, especially if you're investor based, and since Facebook and part of, you know, Instagram being part of Facebook, which some people don't realize, which I don't know how, but some people don't realize, it's all what the investors want, and the investors want growth. And they're not, the fact that Facebook and Instagram are getting near just a max out of the amount of people they can add, just because you're getting close to the max amount of people on the planet who actually would be interested in, you know, your market is not 7 billion people. You know, your market's a few billion. And okay, you may have to cut China out because China won't allow certain things with that. And, you know, it doesn't catch on in maybe India or in Brazil like it did in the US and Western Europe. Oh, that's limiting. And then all of a sudden you say, okay, well, our max is, you know, let's say your max is 2.5 billion people, which is kind of crazy to think with a billion. And let's say you're at 1.6 billion out of that 2.5. You're not going to have 10% growth, 20% growth. It's physically impossible. There's only so much you can do. You know, the numbers are working against you. Now, that means you have to expand out, you know, going from, oh, we only allow square formats to, now we're going to expand out to Android. Oh, now we're going to allow video. Now we're going to do live. Now we got the boomerang. Now we got the stories because now stories, you can just watch people and put things up, and it's got that stickiness going on. Now they're looking for the next thing. So it almost looks like Instagram is not looking to, I don't want to say not looking to innovate, but they're not looking to break new ground. They're waiting for other people to break new ground, see what's popular, use the fact they have this highly profitable machinery behind them, and then copy what they think they can do. And, you know, they may want to switch to another model. The question is, do your users want to switch to the other model? Like Twitter introduced the fleets recently, those little things on top. They're going away.
Oh, are they?
Yeah. People just didn't catch on.
Okay.
It just didn't catch on. So same thing with Instagram. Instagram corporate may say, we're going this way and we're all going to be happy and move this way, and we're going to have this, and we're going to, you know, pay our certain creators who are, you know, top of the line somewhere else to millions of dollars to come in our network and do this, and we're all going to be happy, and this is going to be, and people may say, that's not what I want. You know, I'm happy with you this way. I don't want to switch to this other thing, therefore I'm not going to. And if your users aren't going to come along, now the problem is, if you're let's say you want to, let's say, not use Twitter for your photography, you want a photo only one, they have such a large base that I think if people move away from Instagram, they're going to move to Facebook for their photo sharing.
Yeah,
but there's a difference between following someone on Instagram and Twitter and friending someone, unless you want to make a page on Facebook and have people follow you there, which I know some people have that, but they also have businesses or organizations or something. It's not them as a person.
You know, and the founders of Instagram, Kevin Systrom, I think, and I forget who the other guy is. I think there was two founders. When shortly after Facebook bought them, they left because they didn't like the direction it was going. So, you know, and I look at my poster that I made of 2012 when they did a photo of the day. And there's a post there. I think it's April 14th. Well, maybe it's a different one. I got a couple of ones that are like this text only. And I put on there, so Facebook buys Instagram. You know, and I commented on there about if they ruin it, you know, I can't, you know, just wait to see how long it takes for Facebook to ruin Instagram. And in my opinion, it didn't take long, because when they started pouring ads in, I mean, as it is now, every, I don't know, fourth or fifth image that you swipe through on your feed is a bloody ad. And I mean, I get it. They got to make money. I get it that they got to, you know, all that jazz. What I don't like is the lack of privacy and all that stuff. So, but I mean, Instagram really was a catalyst for the mobile photography movement that happened back in the early aughts. And I think they're forgetting that. They're forgetting what made them what they are. And that's the, you know, the fact that it's mobile photography was all that it was what made Instagram what it is, you know. And in my opinion, there's a lot of traditional photographers on Instagram, and a lot of fantastic photographers. But if they change that to be a video-centric service or platform, there's so many photographers that are going to be looking for a place to go. And right now, I don't know where that's going to be. Some people are saying Twitter, but there's a new app that I've joined. It's called Gala, Gala. It's you know, another one of these guys, another one of these teams of developers who want to be the next Instagram. I thought it was going to be Dayflash. Dayflash is gone. History, kaput, done. They are no more. They say they're going to try to come back when they think that they can do it right or whatever. You know, I had high hopes for Dayflash. I really talked them up on Tiny Shutter. We had Rupali Ranjan, who is a co-founder of Dayflash. We had her on the show, and you know, to try to help promote it. And it was a really nice experience, full screen, the whole 9 yards. I don't know what happened to it. It's gone. It's done.
The problem
lack
is
of funding.
that,
I don't know.
Honestly, without knowing 100% details, if you look at the photos that were, there we go. Bruce mom just called. No, if you look at the funding, well, first of all, remember we talked to him, I said, well, where's your funding? You know, I don't necessarily want details, but it's a free service, and it's a free service without ads. She said, well, we're partnering with programs. Partnering does not, to start off with a partner program.
Well, they had initial investors too, but this program you're talking about is
But the initial investors are enough to get you off the ground and get enough funding to pay for some programmers and get some notoriety. But as sustainable income, that's why everyone's a subscription. That's why all of the apps are subscription based. You need that. You know, you can't say, oh, we're gonna have 10 more people join or 10,000 people join, and that's going to swell. Or no, you need that consistent from a business standpoint. And they never seem to have that. And
you know honestly, what? I would have subscribed to Dayflash if they had a reasonable subscription service. I would subscribe to Instagram if they had a reasonable subscription service without all the ads. I would support Instagram if that's the way they wanted to go. Cut out all the tracking and all that other bull crap that they do, and make it so that if everybody wants to use a service, there's so many people that would probably do that, even if it was like, but it's not going to happen. No, because they're going to make so much more money. It's all about the money. They're going to make so much more money doing it the way they are.
Well, I hate I mean it's being, because I'm definitely not the, the hardline capitalist type person, but especially, well, like the app Mission Pick from Brett Brownsville, that had a really strong core group of people, of around 50, 60 people. But, and I'm not sure, because that was a free service, that was a free app. And he did things like, oh, if you won the I don't want to say post pick of the week, because that's Tiny Shutter, but if you were upvoted, you won the day, he would send you a 4x4 print on glossy paper,
Yeah.
anywhere in the world. Because there was the one guy, Enar, who was real big in Finland. And so, he won a lot. So, you got the printing cost. It wasn't, I don't think it was a home printer. He was going to some kind of service to have it printed out. And then the mailing,
Yeah.
and that's a lot of money. And it's like, okay, well, you're not charging for the service. There's no ads. You can get
Never had a
investors,
Patreon
but
either.
eventually, no, no. And it's like, okay, so where is the sustainable income for this? And eventually there wasn't. And now it's still
Yeah.
going on as a Facebook group, fans of Mission Peg. But that's going on with 50 people and like 30 people, which, again, if you're doing this as something for fun, not money making, but to just have a nice community, 30, 50 people,
Yeah.
that's more than enough. But if you want to make
Yeah.
enough money where you can make a living and build a business off of it, you need all the people. And you can't get that with, onesie, twosies, little things at a time. And unfortunately, people are like, I'm going to leave Instagram. And because I don't, okay, where are you going? And like I said, if I was going to go anywhere, it probably would be Twitter for me. Bless you, Leo. But that's partially because a lot of people who follow me on Instagram also follow me on Twitter. Or the crossover would not be a horrible crossover, but it was like, then there's this brand new app from these people you've never heard of, and here's how you just need to sign up for this app and trust them. They know what they're doing, and they're starting from scratch, and we can build up. And it's like, that's a tough sell for people to start over somewhere new, and to say, and especially not just, let's say, us, where we're maybe in the hundreds or maybe low thousand of followers, but you get someone who has a few million followers, who's a big name, you're like, okay, and we want you to move over to this new app and trust, and we think your followers are going to move with you. Well, unless you're a top of the line, one top two superstar, your people are not going to follow in large numbers.
Yeah.
Unless you can get, like, we have the top, our new app, we've worked with the top 4 people from Instagram, and we're moving them over exclusive to this app, that you can only see their stuff on our app, but you have to do this to get, and you're going to lose a lot of people.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So you have that whole inertia. So, like I said, I think Instagram's going to run into problems with their inertia, with their changes. And people were saying, because how many years have people been saying, I'm going to quit Facebook, I'm going to join this new app, which is so privacy oriented, and it's going, and it dies quickly.
Yeah. And it's sad. It's sad to think that somebody, one company has that much power over, basically over the internet. That just everybody else doesn't seem to have a chance. But well, that's our thoughts on Instagram and what's going to become of it, and what it's done, what it's doing, and what it's going to do. I guess we'll have to wait and see just how far it goes when it comes to pushing the content creators. But well, I think we got ourselves a show, Dave, and
I apologize for everyone listening and watching for the hiccups we've had tonight, mostly on my end.
Yeah, no, that's totally cool. I'll edit it the best I can.
Oh yeah, magic.
Speaking of community and whatnot, tell everybody where they could find you.
Yep, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram as Prof Pod, and on Facebook as Dave Podner Jr.
All right, and you can find me on Instagram at Macmillan Photo, Twitter Macmillan_photo, and oh gosh, you know what? All the links that are in the show notes, you can probably find me there too. So, well, thanks, Dave. It's been a good talk, and thanks everybody for hanging in there, and we will see you all on the next one.
Have a great week.